Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at a 12 marker that you could possibly get on section B of the Psychological Themes through Core Studies exam, and this one is looking at the socially sensitive research debate. So the question is, suggest one strength and one weakness of conducting socially sensitive research. Support your answer with evidence from the core studies, and this is for 12 marks. So this is an answer that I've come up with. It might not get all of the 12 marks, but I'm sure it would get a few. But you could also just attempt this answer and come back and watch the rest of this video and see if you've got a similar answer. But you could write an entirely different answer and still get all the marks. So my answer is the conducting socially sensitive research debate refers to the extent which researchers cause harm to individuals or distress, or the extent to which the research has political or social consequences, such as the stigmatization of an individual or a particular group of people. There are many strengths and weaknesses when it comes to conducting socially sensitive research for this debate. As you can see, I've just done a quick definition to start off with, and you need to do this for every debate question, which is like a 12 marker, or it could be a 15 marker, I'm not really sure, but it's going to be a long one. So you do need to start off with a definition, and then just write a short introduction about strengths and weaknesses, and then your first paragraph is going to be like this. So, one strength of conducting socially sensitive research is that such research can uncover behaviour for important social phenomenon. A prime example of this comes from the research by Bocchiaro et al. 2012 on disobedience and whistleblowing. Obedience to unjust authority figures can be seen as a socially sensitive topic to research, as people might not wish to believe that if they are in a situation, like in Bocchiaro et al. Study, they would obey. Furthermore, the 114 obedient participants in Bocchiaro et al. Study may have been harmed or distressed in the fact that they have come out the study with the knowledge that they are obedient, even in a situation where they should not be. This could potentially rouse feelings of guilt or shame in the participant, especially since they try to convince a friend to participate in a study on sensory deprivation. However, despite this potential downside of conducting socially sensitive research, the researchers did unearth the fact that people are extremely likely to obey what seemed to be a legitimate authority figure, especially as 76.5% of the participants obeyed, when the comparison group only believed that 18.8% would. Therefore, in this way, conducting socially sensitive research can be seen in a positive manner, as it allowed the social phenomenon on obedience to be further studied, where participants were given a clear chance to blow the whistle simply by checking a box on a research committee form, but many failed to do this, which begs the question, why do people obey, especially when there is an easy chance to whistleblow on malevolent authority figures? So that's the strength, even though I did kind of look at a weakness in there, but in the end I turned it back into a strength. So that's a strength, and now we're looking at a weakness. So on the other hand, one weakness of conducting socially sensitive research is that it can have adverse implications for specific groups of people. A good example comes from Gold's study, 1982, on A Nation of Morons, whereby Gold used the content analysis research method to analyse IQ tests used by Yerkes on 1.75 million army recruits during World War II. And just a quick note, it's always important to outline the study at the start of your paragraph, just so that you can just show the examiner that you understand the study, and then you can just kind of link it in to what you're going to say next. So Gold showed that these tests were littered with bias, as they were specifically designed for people who had been brought up in the USA, asking questions such as Crisco is a patent medicine, disinfectant toothpaste, or a food product. It is actually a food product, but many people wouldn't know the answer to this, especially if they were an immigrant from outside the USA. So obviously, immigrants may not have had an idea what Crisco is. Furthermore, illiterate army recruits were meant to be assigned to the Army Beta test, but this rarely happened to avoid bottleneck at the recruitment centres because more people were illiterate than originally planned. Similarly, those who failed the Army Beta test rarely got the chance to go for individual examination, which they were meant to do. In the end, this resulted in black Americans being at the bottom of the IQ scale with an average mental age of 10.41, as opposed to the average American adult, which was just 13 years. The findings from this study were used by politicians and eventually led to the Immigration Restriction Act of 1924, which limited new arrivals each year to 2% of the foreign-born of any nationality shown in the 1890 census. As a consequence of these quotas, 6 million Southern, Eastern and Central Europeans were barred entry from the USA between 1924 and the outbreak of the Second World War. Therefore, in this way, conducting socially sensitive research, such as intelligence testing, can be said to have strong disadvantages, as such data can be used by politicians against people from certain groups. In conclusion, even though conducting socially sensitive research does allow us to investigate important social phenomenon, it is also apparent that there are many disadvantages to socially sensitive research being conducted, with the main weakness being that people can be stigmatized, and in the worst case scenarios barred entry from a country, as occurred in the Immigration Restriction Act imposed by the United States in 1924 as a result of Yerkes's intelligence tests. So that is the end of this question. As you can see, it's just brief introduction, one strength, one weakness, quite detailed, and then a conclusion. And I think that's all you're really going to need for a 12 marker. But good luck if you have the exam tomorrow. I'll be making some more videos, so make sure to check those out. But thank you for watching, and see you soon.